So excited to be doing a little after hours extra discussion on food with Deanna Sharon, uh, one of my favorite functional medicine doctors and my doctor. So Deanna, I have a lot of questions for you. So I'm hoping that we can just have this exploration together, a discussion between doctors, and hopefully help a lot of people. Welcome.
Thank you, Neha. I'm really excited to do this and share this information with all of the people on our call.
Yeah, this is going to be amazing. So, I think one of the most common things that people ask me is, how do you prepare food in a way that's not such a drag and so much work? So it's easy to cook. What's your secret?
Okay, well, there's a couple things. First is planning. So you want to sit down one day and figure out what you're going to plan ahead for the week, lunch and dinners. And then prepping is also really helpful. So you can do that by roasting a chicken on a Sunday and baking a bunch of vegetables and steaming some sweet potatoes, putting them in the fridge and then just having them ready for you to pull out and reheat. The other thing that I love to do is to have a ready-made salad. And the way that I do that is I clean all my lettuce, I put it in my salad spinner, it stays there for days, which is great. And then I'll cut up a bunch of vegetables that I like, celery, radishes, cucumbers, carrots, put them in little small glass Pyrex dishes, keep them in the refrigerator along with the salad, have my ready-made salad, and then you can either buy already made dressings like Primal Kitchen, which is a great option. I love making my own dressings, so I'll use something like extra virgin olive oil with lemon, or I even like something like flaxseed oil with lime, or just great options to just throw on a salad with some salt and spices, whatever spices you like.
Great. And how do you feel about apple cider vinegar in salads?
Great.
Dressing. It's good.
Awesome.
So
Yeah.
I remember I used to do 1 cup of olive oil, 2/3 of a cup of apple cider vinegar, 1/3 of a cup of liquid amino brags. So not soy sauce, because that has gluten in it, but liquid amino brags. And then I would crush like 2 or 3 garlic cloves.
Mhm.
And that was like my favorite salad dressing. So we'll get that recipe going for people too. So you can try a couple of them. So there's all these ready-made or prepped ways that you can buy food. Like some of them, there's a whole bunch of names, but like Daily Harvest or certain brands that are now coming out with these things. How do you know if they're actually good for you?
Well, I think, the best piece of advice is that we want people to eat real food as much as possible. And also when you cook your own food, you know exactly what you're putting in your body, which is ideal. Obviously, there are times when that's just not going to work and you need something that's ready-made or easy to prepare. And so, someone had asked about Daily Harvest and I looked into it and it's really interesting. I mean, I love their principles regarding regenerative agriculture and organic. And so, I think supporting organizations like that could be great. And this way you have something quick, easy to make. I mean, I think, ultimately the idea is that we want you eating real food as much as possible, cooking it at home as much as possible. And if these places like Daily Harvest allow you to do that so that if you don't have time, it's a great, great option.
Yeah. In the Bay Area, I remember a long time ago, my friend Nona had something called SF Cook. And now she's evolved into, soups and all sorts of things for like Whole Foods and things. But this has been going on. This is a movement that's been happening for about 15 years, that companies are really starting to do this. So if you research them, it just sounds like make sure that that the principles they're using align with where you're headed.
Exactly.
So how do you give that being said, how do you really give your family? It gets old after a while. So how do you mix in variety and, spices, give it some spice? How do you do that?
I think eating seasonally, eating local, having a lot of color on your plate. So looking at the rainbow of colors and trying to pick different colors and make sure that you get those seasonal varieties and seasonal colors on your plate is a great way to add some variety.
Great. So, Deanna, I'm wondering, how do people, on a practical level, maybe just with 10 or maybe a little more than that ingredients, how do they create a week's worth of dinners, just kind of interchanging it? Like, what are the rules you use to do that?
Yeah, so I typically will choose healthy animal sources, the pasture-raised chicken that I referred to, or pork, wild-caught fish, grass-fed beef, lamb, or bison. So those are my protein source, which is making up about a quarter to a third of my plate. The rest of the plate is filled with vegetables. So again, that color, adding color to the plate, sweet potatoes and or squash as a healthy complex carb to add to the plate. So make it really simple. It doesn't need to be, some gourmet meal, but just, I think looking at food as fuel is an easy way for us to say, okay, I don't need to make this complicated. I can do this easy. I can feed myself really healthy food that tastes great. And, it doesn't need to be a complicated thing.
Oh, I think that's right. And if somebody's vegan, right? How are they going to get protein?
Yeah, so protein, there's a lot of different protein sources: green peas, pea protein, lentils, beans, nuts, seeds, um, nut butters, seed butters. There's all sorts of different options. Rice protein is also something that vegans can use. Some of the grains like teff, the smaller the grain, the higher the protein content and the lower the carbohydrate content.
So does that
Amaranth,
mean like quinoa would have more protein?
yeah, so I was just about to say amaranth and quinoa are gluten-free grains that are going to have higher amounts of protein. And there are also certain vegetables that tend to be higher in protein, like broccoli, spinach, artichoke, asparagus. Yeah, so there's, that's another thing that you can do is just, I remember being at a conference with Joel Furman, he's an amazing person who does a lot with vegetables. And he said that if you eat a bunch of broccoli, you actually can get more, that's a quote, have more protein in that than a 1 ounce piece of beef. So it's pretty enlightening to me to hear that information. I think the key is that knowing that if you're going to eat just vegetables, you have to eat a lot of them, because obviously, we're talking a bunch of broccoli versus a little piece of meat. So it's about volume when you're talking about vegetables as a protein source.
And, another thought I had was, how everything's keto now, everything's like no carbs. Why do we need carbs? Why are carbs important? And what are people missing, right, if they just stay on a keto diet?
Well, I'm going to tell you that I don't I think the thing that I'm going to say about carbohydrates is that they are a dirty burning fuel in the body. So they create these advanced glycated end products. And so they are a dirty burning fuel. So better fuel sources are protein and fat. And actually, you can make carbs from protein and fat. So for people who are doing keto, I think it's, not important. It's important not to vilify them and say, oh, you're eating the wrong way. I mean, I think that there's no one size fits all when it comes to food, and that really finding what works for you. And sometimes the keto diet works fantastic for people. Other times, there are people that really need the carbs. And so getting those carbs from whole grains and, healthy starchy protein vegetables is really a great way. So, I hate to vilify any of the macronutrients. I think they're important, but some people don't process carbs as well. And so they're, especially as we age, we just don't seem to do it as well. And so it's okay to have a higher protein and fat diet, because your body will convert that into carbohydrate if it needs it or when it needs it.
So what's your take, right? Even on natural sugars, like organic fruits that have higher fructose, like dates or oranges or grapes or watermelon, right? Like, are those healthy?
Well, the thing that I'll say about fruit is the amount that you can eat really depends on the state of your health and your liver health. So, fructose is the sugar in fruit, and fructose is processed by the liver. So, it's kind of different than, say, eating a piece of bread, which isn't processed through the liver because it's a different kind of sugar. So, because we're inundated with so many toxins in our world today, our livers are just taxed. And so adding more fuel to the fire with these higher fructose fruits can be really problematic for people. So I recommend 1 to 2 servings per day for patients. And for some of my patients, they really can't eat any because of their health challenges. It's just too much for their body to process.
Well, one of the things I learned really is because I had a lot of yeast in my system, and sugar feeds yeast. I really, in order to really get it out, even when I was using some, antifungals to get the yeast out, that wasn't enough. I had to actually get off all sugar. And so I think it is really you know, a custom experience for people depending on where they are. So, what's your opinion on kombucha? Speaking of hydration.
Yeah, so I'd say for people who do well with it, it's fine. Unfortunately, a lot of people have trouble breaking down histamine, and so for those people, it can definitely be problematic. Now, easy ways for us to tell if you're not breaking down histamine well: seasonal allergies, asthma, skin rashes, any kind of eczema,
Mhm.
allergic type reactions tell us that you're not breaking down histamine well. You eat certain foods and you get red ears, or you develop stomach pain. So there are all kinds of clues to this. But yeah, so I think kombucha, great for those that tolerate it, but a lot of people don't because of their inability to break down the histamine.
Great. So tell me, if somebody is vegan, vegetarian, what are they missing by just eating plants?
So as I was mentioning earlier, it's hard to get enough protein in, period. And when I talked about the amount of vegetables that you need to get enough protein in, protein is just so important for healing, repair, detoxification. So I think, again, it's hard for any of us to get in enough protein. It becomes harder with the volume of food that you need to eat when you're eating plants. And then I think, the other thing that I see is a lot of vegans in my practice tend to eat a lot of processed food, bread, cereal, pasta, even, the seitan and the tofu and tempeh. These are all processed foods. So again, I think if we can focus on eating real food that comes directly from nature, you'll get in more of the protein, and you just need to eat larger amounts of those vegetables to get in enough.
And so if they're dairy free, that's even more. And so how are they going to get protein?
So, I mean, we kind of talked about this a little bit earlier, but green peas, pea protein, lentils, beans, the teff, again, the smaller grains like quinoa are going to be higher in protein, lower in carbohydrates. The nuts and the seeds, nut and seed butters are great options. And then I had sort of started mentioning some of the vegetables with the highest protein: broccoli, spinach, asparagus, artichokes. Interestingly enough, white and sweet potatoes that we tend to, think about related to carbs, and then Brussels sprouts. And again, I'm going to say real food. Like if I can get you away from having a chocolate bar or a croissant or, sandwiches, and have you eating potato, meat, and nice green vegetable, and that's going to be much healthier than, the processed foods.